be, we had a country, we held our own destiny. Used to be sweet 1950. Now nothing's at all what it seems. Look around, what a time to be living. Walking through the ruin of home, broken by subversivism, oh Lord. I heard the sound, thunder so clearly, trumpet borne in on the breeze. I felt the ground sunder so easy, nothing was hallowed beneath. Look around, what a time to be living. Walking in the ruin of Rome, haunted by Judaism, oh Lord. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do. Look around, what a time to be living. Walking through the ruin of home, broken by liberalism. It's all gone to hell, oh Lord.
Welcome back to American Zarathustra. This is episode 14 of Imperium Art. Today we have an extremely important guest with us, Jack Hwite. This gentleman is a central pillar to the White Art Collective and one of my personal favorite musicians. What this man can do with a banjo and the truth will shake you right down to your soul. He's a phenomenal guy, fantastic songwriter, and we are really, really pleased to have him here with us today. How are you doing, Jack?
Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you too.
Awesome, awesome. And I'd also like to introduce again my guest, my co-host and my friend, Nullus. How are you doing, Nullus?
Hi, how's everybody? Hi, Jack. Hi, Donald, and hello to the audience.
All right, good stuff. So let's just get right into it, Jack. We'd like to learn more about you and your music. So, for example, and of course, there'll be links below. I'm really interested in how you developed your musical style. A lot of us, we have very highly produced music, instrumentation and layers and production value and all this, but your work is just very raw, and there's a really strong aesthetic to it. I have to admit, the first time I heard it, I don't know, I had this kind of Civil War vibe, this kind of Southern vibe of the Civil, and I mean, for me as an American, that really went right into my heart. So how did it all happen? How did you create this style of yours?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is probably the main influence on my music is actually sort of limitation, because I'm actually not really a great musician or anything, and I know that because there are many really super talented people at the White Art Collective that can do basically everything. Like, they can play multiple instruments, but I can't do that, and so it was really just, because I can just play the guitar. So folk was really sort of intuitive. And I think that sort of, and obviously being, nationalist, whatnot,
Mm.
you sort of end up alone. So you just, it was obvious that, it was going to be folk. And so I just focused on melody and I guess the lyricism, like the simple stuff. But I guess fortunately, like that is basically the bare bones of music.
Hmm.
Um, Other than that, I would say I think a lot of people thought I was an American originally, and
Yeah, you tricked me.
well, I'm very influenced by, well, I would say that the second major the piece in this puzzle was it was just utility. It was just I realized that I'm hugely influenced by, British and especially Irish traditional folk music, but
Hmm.
with the American stuff, they continued to sort of develop that style through, blues and country
Yeah, country
into a
specifically.
more
Yeah.
into a more modern sort of era. They sort of developed those genres in a way that didn't really happen so much here,
Mm.
except with, exceptions like, for example, the Pogues or something
Yeah, I
like.
was just going to say the Pogues. Yeah. Every time I hear country music, I vaguely hear echoes of Irish folk music from the past. It's quite interesting.
Absolutely, that stuff really resonates with me because essentially, like, it was basically people, especially from like Ulster, who, went to the Appalachians and stuff. That's mostly the
For
same
sure.
stock as me, and country is really sort of popular here as well.
Mm.
And but yeah, back at speaking of utility, like my interest in Americana is essentially sort of apart from the sound, which I like. It was literary. I realized I could use that genre and the tropes,
Mm.
of that genre, like heartache, women problems, drinking,
Yeah,
like
I've had a lot of those. Yeah.
Christianity, guns, trains, and
Mm.
songs about your mama and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
I realized I could use those in a sort of a more contemporary context.
Mm.
And in terms of the sort of in terms of like the pro-white message, so it just uh, it just all sort of came together uh, in a way.
Now,
Like
were you working with anyone or inspired by anyone in the white positive sphere, or did you really just do this totally on your own and say, I got to start writing songs about this, and then discovered the White Art Collective? What was the sequence of events of your development or your evolution?
all right, well, I would say I was already thinking like this even when I was sort of like half red pilled.
Hmm.
I would say, I released, or I wrote some songs back in like 2014 or so,
Yeah.
something like that. And I was already using these sort of Americana motifs. I just uploaded this song like called Promised Land. It has those motifs of like, bourbon and, you know, the pistol and,
Right.
that kind of thing. But
Hmm.
it really didn't come into it didn't really click for me until I got I had a very bad year in like 2017. I became very depressed about the movement.
Right.
After all the optimism of sort of Trump and
Sure.
Brexit,
Yeah.
everything sort of slowed down.
Mm.
And I wasn't making music. I wasn't planning on making music, but it just became a sort of
Mm.
like an outpouring of
Yeah.
expression, I would say.
I think a
And
lot of good music comes out of that mode, that it's sort of depression. I don't even like to use that word, but there's maybe
I
like
don't like that word either. It sounds
yeah,
like a
like more like a
illness.
malaise, or we're like, where are we going? And I'm frustrated. I got to get this out, you know.
Yeah,
Mhm. So here's
actually.
interesting. I'm sorry, you've published a lot of your music. You're now on BitChute mostly, or where can people find your work?
Yeah, you can find me on like BitChute and SoundCloud.
Hmm.
Uh, I lost my. I have a YouTube channel, but it's kind of small and under the table because I lost my main one back in
Yeah,
December
yeah.
when Whack did as well. We both
So
got.
I'm looking at your BitChute now, and some of the titles of your songs, for example, A Hangman's Lament, White Horse on the Wind, George Washington Blues, White America Death Camp Blues. There's some Prayer for the Ethno State, The Burning of Sodom. There's some very strong messages here, and you have a way of, I don't know, there's just a raw honesty to your work that is super powerful. And I guess I'm kind of wondering if you could talk a little bit about maybe one or two of these songs and what, where they came from, what they mean to you, what you'd like people to experience when they listen to them.
Sure. I mean, I guess, music was it was just it was like, I mean, initially I wasn't really planning on sharing a lot of what I was doing.
Mm.
It was just,
It seems to me if you didn't plan on sharing it, then in a way you could be even more honest, more raw.
exactly. That's why, that's what I'm trying to say, is that I was more honest than I would have been if I had have been, thinking about who's going to listen to this.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's interesting because it's like when, how do I say this? We inside the white positive sphere, inside the dissident right, we're able to talk very boldly and honestly with each other. But when we're on social media, etc., we kind of have to have some level of OPSEC, like how,
Absolutely.
yeah, how much are we going to say? And I mean, I'm not really great at that. I've definitely crossed the red line many times.
I know very
You
well. I
know
follow
me,
you on
you know.
Facebook.
Okay, okay, but we're not going to go there. But here's the beauty of that. It's just like friends, right? What you would say in confidence to your best friend, you're saying in this song. It's kind of like you're tapping me on the shoulder and you're saying, ethno state blues or something. And I'm like, yeah, man, I feel that. I hear that. And it's something that's I think why your music is so important, central, and powerful to our movement. So, I'm just really trying to get the viewers to check out your music and to share this as much as possible. Nullus, I'm sorry, did you want to comment or jump in at any point?
I mean, all I really want to say is number one, it's a huge honor to have Jack on this show because I'm a big fan of your music, Jack. And not only that, but when I started getting more involved with the White Art Collective, among many, many great artists in the White Art Collective, you were, I would say, one of the more influential people and sort of helped me gain the confidence that I needed to pursue my writing and my artistic expression. And so I wanted to just thank you for that. And I think that people should understand that what we're doing also is trying to inspire other people to create and to help us grow artistically together. So I just wanted to mention that.
That's a brilliant point right there. I think that is a key point, even for people who are not artists, musicians, creators, just to see and hear someone speak so honestly about the white experience in our current time. It's empowering, and I think that's part of why I really want to promote your music a lot. So it's quite awesome. We're just very grateful to you. Now, you play a really important role in the White Art Collective. perhaps you could talk to us about how you discovered the White Art Collective and, you know, the whole arc of when you got into it to what you're doing now.
You know, they kind of discovered me, to be honest. You know, I knew about the White Art Collective from some years ago. Like Jeff was on you know, a millennial episode. And, you know, you know, I looked at their website and I thought, you know, this is cool. And then, you know, I just kind of forgot about it. I didn't really see that, you know, a lot was going on. And I wasn't making music at the time or anything like this, you know. Like, I'm a kind of sporadic, you know, like I said, like, I'm not a real musician or anything. Like, it's not, you know, my profession or anything like
you
that.
fake it really well, I'll say.
Yeah, well, I will say, thank you both for such very kind words. I'm a huge appreciator of both of your work as well. But yeah, no, what happened was, yeah, like I said, I had a bad year and I just took up, you know, art again, or being creative as an emotional sort of outlet, I would say. And these songs, they just started coming out, and yeah, initially I wasn't planning on. It was just I hate this word as well, like therapy or.
Yeah,
You know what I mean. It was
I
like
totally know what you mean. It's funny. I mean, let's think about it. Like everybody has problems of all kinds, and we're constantly seeking resolution to those things. So, isn't it all therapy in some way? I mean, you know, some people choose bad therapy. That might be at the end of a bottle or some other kind of thing, or just talking to friends or something. But doing something constructive and artistic is the best kind, and against we'll walk away from the term therapy there, but it's healthy.
that word is being banned in the ethnic.
Okay, we officially ban it right now. We'll invent a word. But I'm curious. So, like, Jeff Winston is the creator of the White Art Collective? Did he reach out to you? And then
What happened was like, so I set up a YouTube channel and. Finally, like I uploaded, nothing really happened for like, you know, a month or two, and then like I think I set up a Gab account, and you know, I joined some like based groups, shall we say?
Yeah.
Including the White Art Collective, because I saw that, you know, I was just like, you know, typing in like white, like search for like groups or like art. And I started one night. I just started like posting. Like I was just like, nobody's gonna like, yeah, nobody's ever gonna know. You know, maybe someone will like this. You know, maybe someone will recognize. You know, and it was the handsome horse.
Yeah. Our good friend.
It's the handsome horse who picked up. This guy like kept liking like all my stuff.
Awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the one who sort of like put me in touch. This is when Gab still had like DMs, so I think we DM'd. Like, he was like, "You gotta." So that's when I found out, you know, Whack had like a YouTube show, like a radio show.
Sure.
And then I think Jeff DM'd me. Was like, "We'd love to play your stuff." I was like, "Yes." Yeah.
Good for you.
And that's basically what happened. You know?
Now, let's see, have you collaborated with people in the White Art Collective? Are you involved in any shows or any other kind of activities?
I've collaborated with Hwite, I guess. Everybody's collaborated with her.
No, everybody wants to, you know.
But I'm not a big collaborator, but I would like to do more of that. I would really like to collaborate with Mamas and Pepe's at some point on like some kind of like country stuff. I had Nullus as well. Like,
oh my God, I could see you singing Nullus's lyrics. You know, that would be exquisite. That would work really nicely for sure.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And sorry, where are we going with this again?
Well, I'm just curious about your relationship. I think Nullus has some questions, though.
No, I mean no questions, but I think that people have been playing, or not collaboration, but they've been playing covers of your songs, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a few of those, but they're great as well. They're a lot of fun.
Quite a few Jack White covers out there. So please check it out, everybody. And
Yeah.
Jack, you're also involved in the Our Culture program on the White Art Collective, which is a really good, just for the audience sake, is an excellent series or show on the White Art Collective where they discuss various topics related to culture. And I think you also had Kai Muros on with Hyrith. The two of you were on with her. But you've been very, I mean, it's basically your baby, right? The Art Culture program.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but it was. I guess I sort of conceived the idea and like
Nice.
sort of pitched it to Jeff as like, you know, because we were always trying to, like especially myself and like Lord Wolfshield were always trying to like get Jeff on like shows and stuff. And in the end, we thought, well, you know, why don't we just do it ourselves? You know, hey, why don't we just, you know, why don't we bring people on our show? Yeah, rather than always like, you know, going to like begging to sort of, you know, why don't we have enough going on here? Like we have a scene, we have we're doing stuff, you know, that no one else is really doing, and we have something to offer, basically.
Indeed. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the interview with Kai Moros. I'm a massive fan of his. He's incredible. But, you know, it's amazing because he's a lot like you in the sense that the content he puts out is extremely powerful, but as a man, he's a very modest and friendly person and maybe a bit shy as well. What was the experience like having him on the show?
Oh, it was great. Like, I love that guy. I followed him for, you know, a really good while. I definitely cite him as someone very influential to my thinking. I know, it was just such an honor, you know. He's someone I chat with sometimes on Facebook, and it was great talk. He's such a nice man. He's so you know, if you get to talk to him, he's just a really beautiful guy.
Yeah, we've chatted a bit, myself and him. I was just curious if there are any takeaways from that show as well that maybe were, you know, really important.
Oh no, what I love about, I mean, it's the same with Jeff. Like Jeff has, you know, Jeff has these extraordinary, like even when I listen to Jeff talk about, you know, his future plans, I'm like, holy hell,
Yeah.
like.
He's certainly a visionary.
He wants to turn White Art Collective into like an institution, like it's the same with Chimeras. They just have these like huge ambitions, you know.
Yes.
That are just so grand and visionary. You know, it's sort of inspiring. I would say.
Sort of. For sure.
I mean, like I never think that far ahead, but you know, there are people who are thinking, you know, like you know, way ahead, you know.
Yeah, that's us for sure. Speaking of thinking ahead, do you have any other guests that you'd like to have on the show, or guests that you have planned for the art?
Sure. I'd like to interview maybe because I'm obviously more in touch with the UK scene.
Of course.
I don't know. I'd like to interview Edward Dutton, for example.
Great. Yeah. Speaking of the UK scene, have you been to any events over there? Patriotic Weekly. I don't know if you could kind of expand a little bit.
Patriotic Alternative. Yeah. I went to their first inaugural conference sort of last year, and that was a really wonderful experience. And I find you know, obviously like my major home is like at WAC, and that's where I get most of my white pills. But as a broader like political sort of organization, I'm very hopeful about the things that they can achieve, and very
Right.
supportive.
Do you
What
see any future relationship or connection, or maybe more collaboration between the White Art Collective and Patriotic Alternative?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I hope I hope White Art Collective remains sort of as a cultural sort of thing, and absolutely, but I totally see sort of mutual support. We have the same ends at heart,
Hmm.
and absolutely, I'd love to build more sort of networks
Yeah.
with anyone who has our ends. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
absolutely. Let's all work together. Like, I think it's great.
it's brilliant. Well, it seems like, unless Nullus, did you want to continue on this track, or shall we dive into some Imperium Art discussion?
Well, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Jeff Winston again
Hmm.
as the heart and soul and the center of the White Art Collective, and I think that he plays an extremely much more important part than people realize. And I'm saying this primarily for the audience's sake, because the three of us are keenly aware of this
Hmm.
reality. But I think that we definitely owe Jeff quite a bit of gratitude for his hard work. And so I just want everyone to really try to go and visit the White Art Collective, check out the programs on DLive, and also support all these artists. I mean, they're just a phenomenal array of artists of many different genres, different styles, and different artistic expressions. So I think that the more we build on the White Art Collective as a foundation, an organizational, institutional foundation, I think the stronger we become, not only as artists but also culturally. So I just wanted to mention this.
Indeed, there's so much going on behind the scenes that Jeff does, and the time and effort is enormous, and we can never thank him enough, actually, for all of that. I believe he just opened up a new website. It's kind of like our own White Art Collective BitChute, I guess. And Jack, do you know anything about that?
I think White Art Collective has had BitChute for a while, but I think
I should say he
working on
he
a
made like,
website.
it's a website exclusively for our content, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's presently working on that, and it's in development, but hopefully it will come along soon. But yeah, I absolutely second what Nullus has said. It's just an honor, to be involved. And like back to what you were saying, it's you know making music, it's an outlet, but what I really wanted was something to put, you know, something to put effort into, something to work for, and I just think White Art Collective. There are other projects and everything, but obviously I'm putting my effort into sort of the cultural side. It's just it's like a sense of purpose or something. It's like you can make a difference, and you guys are obviously like total workhorses as well.
That I'm really glad you made that comment, because earlier today, I'm in one of many Facebook groups, communities of people that are woke to white replacement, white genocide, and there was one gentleman who pretty much just had a breakdown and just was like, I can't take it anymore. This, just all these things that are happening in the world, and I'm losing it. And all of us sort of kind of jumped on there and gave him just our different advice, encouragement, love, support. And as I found myself, talking with him about transmuting the pain and the frustration into something to do, I realized, I'm an artist, painter, musician. This is all the tools that I have. I have to work with the tools that I have. I would love to be a warrior, leader, all these other cool things, but my sword is a pencil. So, or your sword is a guitar or something like that. So I think that's not such a bad thing. Obviously, we're really significant in terms of the health and well-being of our people who are struggling through this crazy, crazy time. So we should kind of give ourselves a little more credit, but at the same time, I identify strongly with that feeling of I've got to do something. Well, there's a guitar
Yeah,
right up there.
it's good to have friends in the scene, but what you really want is to be like putting your effort into, work
Mhm.
for. That's where the sort of, I think the sense of purpose comes from. You're working for something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, yeah.
Mhm. So that's a really good takeaway for this show. What you just said, creating a sense of purpose, finding a sense of purpose, developing something within your skill sets and resources that gives you that sense of purpose, because we have to balance that out with the kind of the existential agony we go through day in and day out, looking at all the media, the anti-white media, the anti-white policies, the corruption, and go on and on.
But yeah, you want to feel like you're actually doing something, you know what I mean? And I think that's, Jeff has created this sort of scene where, we can actually help in some way. We can invest our efforts,
And it's wonderful. The White Art Collective scene it's interesting because a lot of the music and art and poetry we produce is very heavy and profound. But then when we hang out, we're just silly and fun and joke around and have just like good old friends. There's no, you
Especially
just,
you, Donald. Especially you.
especially me, really. Okay. Laughter is the best medicine. I find that, like, to be happy in life, make other people laugh. There's something about it. It's Laughter is contagious. And on this show, I'm fairly serious. I don't, that other side of me doesn't. get.
Guys, I wanted to read something very quickly, if you don't
Right.
mind.
Sure.
So I'm going to read some lyrics to you, and you tell me if it rings a bell. You're alone above the street somewhere, wondering how you'll ever count out there. You can walk, you can walk, you can fight, but inside you've got something to write. In your hand you hold your only friend. Never spend your guitar or your pen. Your guitar or your pen. This is from The Who, Guitar and Pen.
Get
So
out
I
of
just
town.
thought
Really?
I'd,
I
yeah,
thought
I
you
just
wrote
thought
that.
I'd share that. No, I wish.
There's, that one of these days we should do a talk about the Who. I mean, Behind Blue Eyes. There's the Roger Daltrey is super nationalistic. He's like totally for Brexit and all this, and that I feel like in some way the Who could, in some way, they could be like members of the White Art Collective or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That would be great.
that would be cool. So, I don't know, Nullus, would you like to work on the questions or take the questions from here about Imperium Art?
Yeah. So, Jack, first question I just wanted to ask you is: did you have a chance to look at any of our streams, past streams? And if so,
Yeah.
or the essay I wrote, and again, we never really make this a condition, but it always helps to provide context on what we're trying to discuss with regard to Imperium Art. And if you do you have anything that stood out in any of these conversations or the essay that might be of interest that you wanted to highlight as something that you would want to talk about?
Yeah, I actually I reread. Yeah, I've watched many of your episodes, and I actually reread your essay today. I read it the first time when it came out, but I've actually got kind of a bad memory. So, but, yeah, no, I think the essay is excellent. What I would say about Imperium Art, as like it's a sort of a taxonomy or a category or a sort of guide to creating art is, you cover a lot of bases in The essay, some of it would not be my personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
Nullus, I mean, do you remember when we first met on Twitter? Do you remember like our first interactions? Right? It must have been like over a year ago, probably.
Yeah, about a year ago, give or take. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you probably I don't know who turned me on to or who told me like check this out because I like poetry and maybe it was Hyrith, I can't remember, but you had a poem and I argued. I said in one of your poems I was like this is based, this is really based, but I was like I would have used this word. That was like
Mm-hmm.
one of the first interactions. I think it was, I can't remember what word you used, but I was like, I would have used like retribution or like revenge or something.
What was it? The word therapy? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but that's
Oh.
that's actually a really good thing about writing. To be honest with you, I'm basically writing a certain way, the essay or my poetry, and I think that if somebody looks at it and says, okay, they would maybe like write it slightly differently, or they would maybe put an emphasis on a different point. To me, that's a good thing because that means that it's inspiring them to think about it, and I think that's really the purpose. With that said, of course, I'm always open, and I think that's the complete purpose of the Imperium Art exercise. But in general, I'm always open to constructive criticism. I mean, if somebody comes back to me and says, maybe you should use this word instead of that word, or maybe you should have said this instead of that. It happens, and I think that's the way we should help each other grow. So this is why I'm welcoming any kind of critique that you might have.
Oh,
By all means.
totally wasn't. It totally wasn't a criticism. It was just a sort of an expression of sort of my preference. Like,
Mm-hmm.
basically, what I was saying was like I always go for like the more savage
Right.
language, like the more emotive language. And when I read your essay, I find it much more to your preference, as distinct from my own, I would say, which I always try and go for. I always try and go for the more primal. I mean, one of the things that struck me, one of the things that strikes me about Imperium art is it's much more sort of Apollo, whereas some of my tastes, I would say, are much more Dionysus.
Okay.
Could you expand on that? Be a
Uh,
little definitive and a little clearer.
Well, I just mean, well, I'm thinking of Nietzsche's Birth of Tragedy here. I don't know if that's a very good book, but those sort of that dialectic always struck me as sort of interesting, with regard to art. Whereas with Apollo you have the more structured, noble, ordered, and with Dionysus you have the more sort of primal, sort of chaotic, savage kind of. So my preference in some ways is for the latter, but and that's what I'm talking about when myself and Nullus first met. We basically had a like slight discussion about that, not in those terms, but I expressed my preference for the more visceral sort of language, basically.
That could go off in an interesting tangent, though. I mean, why is it that you liked it that way? Do you find that the Apollonian approach is more stifling? Or, I mean, the advice you give yourself, or not advice, the advice you give others and what you do for yourself are not always the same, as an artist. But what draws you more to the Dionysian side, would you say?
I find it more affecting, and this is not like an expression of like some sort of instruction or anything. It's just purely preference. It's I find you know I'm just more attracted to. In terms of art, I'm not saying in like my real life. Like, I'm not going out for like drunken orgies where you tear people apart in half. I'm just saying like you know, in terms of art, I am attracted to like you know I like Caravaggio for example. He'd be one of my favorite artists because he depicts very visceral sort of pictures.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, as opposed to you know, grand cathedrals or something like that. I don't.
How, in your opinion, how does sort of what's the aesthetic of the Dionysian orientation? Like, how does that impact or affect your aesthetics or aesthetics in general, as opposed to Apollonian aesthetics? I think if I'm on the same page with you here, you'd say comparing, I don't know, a cathedral and even maybe architecture and these things to Apollo, things that are ordered, let's just say. Whereas you have this visceral, guttural, primal art that, I guess I'm trying to get a more clear view of how you see this dichotomy in the arts. And I'd like to take it more on an aesthetic level. Can you go anywhere with that?
I don't really think much about aesthetics, to be honest, because obviously, like, I just, for me, music is just essentially like the melody, and ideally, you'll have some nice crafted lyrics. I can't write. When you say the Imperium Art, it sounds very grand. If I'm happy to be like categorized or like, questioned within this sort of taxonomy or category, or I'm happy to be included, but it sounds very sort of classical, and obviously Dionysus is also classical in many ways as well, but it's just really a preference. Like, it's just a preference of like language and image.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to get at with what Jack is saying, and I fully agree with him. There's a lot of times, honestly, where I struggle with this when I'm writing or even considering different poems to like, how do I express myself? And sometimes I notice that I do hold myself back a little bit more than I should. Other times I let go a little bit. And I do feel that, and I think that in the essay I do talk about embracing that full emotional spectrum of your more visceral side with your more controlled side. Stylistically, yeah. I'm probably more of a structuralist anyway. Generally speaking, I like the order, I like the organization of the way I do things. There's always a very structured approach to everything that I do, but I'm not saying this to explain myself, more about the different how should I say, the different spectra of how we can express ourselves artistically. But like, there's this one poem that I never published that I sent Donald about the working man, the rise of the working man. I don't even know if I'll ever share that one with anyone, but you remember that one, Don, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was pretty explicit, And so I try, and this is an interesting thing. It comes out to the question, right, of the implicit versus the explicit expression of what we feel. Both can be done very creatively. Both can have, I think really the message and how you express yourself is important. But I think what's really more important is the ability to express yourself in a way that captures the audience, that resonates with the audience. So like what Jack does, I think, is phenomenal, and I really applaud all his work, because what he writes about, how he sings it, is very direct. It's very honest. It's very open, and it resonates with me in ways that other art doesn't resonate as much with me. So I think that's a big deal, and so they're all very important aspects that we have to consider, I think.
I'd like to hear Jack do a song of your poem "Working Man." Actually, I think that would work.
Well,
To me at least.
I'll send it to you, Jack. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah, that one is. I haven't shared that with
Pretty
anyone.
Yeah, it's
No, like look, I'm just talking about like preference here. Like that's
right.
just my preference. I'm not saying like you should do this way or you should do this. Like
Right.
no, in fact, I'm totally the opposite of that. Like another bad word here, like diversity. Like I want like diverse art, diverse creativity. I'm just telling you like. This is just simply a personal like preference. Like that's what moves me. That's what affects me. Like that's what interests me.
we can take back those words like diversity. Bring them.
We're
back.
gonna take them all back and
Oh, yeah.
All of it.
It's ours. Yes.
We're taking gay back.
Happy. Yeah.
Yeah, but not in the same context, right? So in terms of Imperium art, do you see well, let's maybe tie this into the White Art Collective, at least in your view. How do you see Imperium art connecting with the White Art Collective?
Oh, I think what you guys are doing here is great. For me, like, okay, I would say that the most what's really great about this is that it's almost okay. It's early days, and maybe this will go. Maybe this will become a kind of a guide, a kind of art movement in the long run. But right now, for me personally, and I'm just talking personally here, I think right now it's like a question. It's like it's made me sort of question, what I'm doing in an intellectual sense, which I never really did before, because I don't really think about, this kind of thing. I just sort of, do it or whatever.
Yeah, do you think that, for example, here's a good question on that. So do you think Imperium art, let me rephrase that question, how do you think Imperium art could best impact society both artistically and politically?
Man, that's a tricky question. I mean, we would have to certainly like grow as a community, as a sort of artistic movement. I mean, how long are you thinking here? Like, if you're thinking way ahead, it could become a sort of like an intellectual movement about pro-white art, I guess.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it. I mean, I think really
But right now, I would say its real value is mostly a question. Like, it's like,
right.
what are you doing? Like,
That's what I wanted to get at, because you see the purpose of these streams that we've had with Donald on Imperium art is really putting the question out to our guests, out to the audience, to come back to us and let us know what they think Imperium art should be, so that we understand it. I mean, by saying that we have a clear definition of what it is, we have I would say we have a foundational understanding of Imperium art, and I think that most of us would agree that that's really a strong foundational understanding of Imperium art, which is basically the preservation of our society, preservation of the European civilization artistically and also in culturally. So I think that would be a good point of departure. But in terms of what it defines itself as, whether this is an exclusive movement that has high art only, whether this is an inclusive movement that includes many different elements of dissident right art, that's really where we're trying to get feedback and critique from our guests, from everyone, to sort of figure out which direction we want to take this, or what makes the most sense.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think it's been hugely, fruitful so far. Like I've really enjoyed, the discussion because it's kind of I mean, right now, like I hope it develops, but it's it's mainly like a question, like what are you doing? Like I haven't really thought about, until you guys invited me. Like I didn't really think about, what I was doing, like in a
Right.
sort of intellectual sort of if you could call it that. I didn't really think about it, and it made me think a lot. Like what am I doing, and do I fit this?
Right.
Where do I not fit this? So it's
Well,
like
let me ask you this
it's like a
question.
self-critique as well.
Well, do you believe that your music or your art is a part of Imperium Art or not? And if so, then why? And if not, then why?
I mean, I hope so, but I don't really like to judge my music. I always think, like the market should judge it, and like you guys should judge it, because, I would like to be a part of Imperium Art.
I think
Absolutely.
I can definitely say you are.
Yeah, I agree fully, by the way.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, you see, that's the
It
other
sounds
thing, right?
very okay. Let me say this. It sounds very grand. It sounds like a very grand way to describe my music, because I essentially think of my music as basically just folk music.
Mhm.
Almost sort of plebeian
Yes.
almost. Yeah. And when you put, well, I'm happy to be regarded as Imperium.
Mhm.
The word Imperium has like certain connotations of grandeur and
Mhm.
there's power
Mhm.
that I don't that I don't enjoy presently, but maybe one day. Who knows?
Well, there's a lot of ways to look at this, and we've talked about this extensively on all our other shows. So, for starters, your work is very powerful. So, even though it appeals to the common man and it's very, I guess, simple musically, that that doesn't speak to the intense power of your music. The honesty, the visceral quality that you have in your music. So I certainly would say, for starters, it's extremely powerful music. And then secondly, it fits into the sort of mosaic of all the creators that are making arts about the white diaspora, the white experience
Hmm.
in white genocide, and our fight against it. So yours especially. I mean, these are some rallying cries that you're talking about. And then on the other side, when you say make a song about Sky King, I think your song about Sky King is the essential song for the history of that moment in our movement.
Yeah.
If there's a pinpoint on the map for his death and why and how he died, etc., your song is the representation of that. That's a major mark in history that you made. And so what we're trying to do, in a sense, is just sort of be historians and document all this
Right.
stuff. So we're all different in our ways. Some of us are just musicians. There's no lyrics in our music at all. But some of us, we
Yep.
do it from the spirit of Imperium, and we do it from the white bio spirit, and therefore it's part of our family and our movement. So does that
Absolutely.
clarify? What do you with that in mind? How do you see your art in that mosaic?
I'm just, just happy to be like I'm just happy to be like friends with you guys, and like, be on the same team and work together. Yeah, those are very kind words, and I really appreciate both of your work as well. Like Donald, you're so talented, and like Nullus, you're so talented as well. And it's just
I hear
I,
you.
I just love being part of. I love being a part of the Whack Pack, and
Yeah, yeah.
working for. And it's not just like, oh, working for the Whack Pack. It's like, the Whack Pack is, it's a vehicle for something even bigger. It's like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the greater cause.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm remembered at all, That's fine. That's great. I just, yeah, I'm just
That
happy
that
to be
actually
relevant.
flows perfectly into our next question about, do you consider White Art Collective a part of Imperium Art? What roles would the White Art Collective ideally play in this context? That we're really just kind of digging into the data and shaking it up and getting your perspective on where these two things overlap.
I don't know, like Imperium Art seems slightly more specific than what's going on. Like, I really like the name White Art Collective because
Hmm.
it's quite broad, but it's like quite specific as well. And if you listen, if you talk to Jeff, like it doesn't, you don't have to be pro-white, to be involved in the White Art Collective. Like, as long as you're not anti-white, you're basically sort of welcome. You can be, I mean, this is my understanding. Jeff can correct me if I'm mistaken here. But there are musicians that, obviously, like I'm quite explicit, and there are musicians that are a little more subtle and everything.
Hmm.
There are musicians who are just, they're just playing European music,
Yeah.
that's great, So I
That's
like.
actually, I apologize. I just wanted to pop in quick because
Yep.
this is what Nullus means by inclusive or exclusive in terms of, if let's say is Irish folk music, for example, Imperium art
Right.
versus, and I mean it's just the indigenous music of these people, like so many other indigenous kinds of music from other people in Europe. So this is just what's floating in the question sphere for us.
Yeah. And my argument to that is always two. Well, there's 2 points, right? My argument is that folk music, mythology, anything that's organically European is by default a part of Imperium art. The question, of course, is are all the artists who play that music or who write about that mythology, are they a part of Imperium art? And there, I would say not everyone is, but the core itself is Imperium art. In other words, if I look at a Greek play, or if I look at Irish folk music, in and of itself, that is our. My argument is always that that is the foundation. That's a wellspring from which we draw upon in our culture. So the source itself is Imperium art. Now you do have musicians who play Irish folk music, Hungarian folk music, any kind of folk music. Not all of them are explicitly doing this for the sake of maintaining the culture for the sake of the culture. They're doing it because they enjoy it, they like it, and they like to perform it, but they don't see anything beyond the aesthetic. So I think that's really a big part of this discussion on Imperium art, on whether this form of folk music is a part of it or not. And that's where, for example, where you said, Jack, that there are musicians that come in that are sympathetic to the White Art Collective, but their music is not necessarily explicitly something that would be constituted as even dissident right or what have you. But they still, their music is very European. Now, in my view, that those people that do that, I believe, are a part of the Imperium art because they understand why they're doing it, and they might not be explicit about it, but they know that the purpose of it is still clear to them at least. So hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, I think it's great. You know, just because I make a certain type of music, it's not like an instruction for other people to do that. And
Hmm.
again, this word diversity, but I think the more, because I see the community as not one big market, but like sub markets. Maybe some people will like folk music, maybe they'll like me, but maybe they won't like me because like I'm too explicit, or maybe they'll like somebody else. And I think it's about, accommodating different, not accommodating, but, there are different tastes,
Right.
I'm just going to do what I do. And, yes, I'm explicit because that's just my preference. And I just think that's where I'm at, that's where the revolution, that's where, to be a pro-white artist is to create sort of revolutionary art. It's
Mhm.
simple,
Well said.
if you wanna, each to their own. I'm not saying mine, my approach is better than anyone else's, not at all. But that's just where I'm at, and for me, that's really where the art is, because that's just the way I feel at it. I feel
I
about it.
mean, it's interesting because we're talking about also the White Art Collective as an institution, which I fully support. And I again want to reiterate to the audience, please support the White Art Collective and all the work that's being done there. The shows are phenomenal, the artists are excellent, and it's just growing every day. But what I write about in my essay is about this existential plane, so to speak, where people of various backgrounds, whether that's cultural backgrounds, whether that's ethnic backgrounds, whether that's musical or let's say stylistic backgrounds, can converge and exchange ideas, collaborate, learn from each other, and grow. And I think this aspect of Imperium Art is exactly what the White Art Collective represents, at least at the moment. What do you think about that, Jack?
Uh, I don't disagree. Look, I mean, I'm just happy. I'm generally just happy. Like I have, someone will play my music. Like a lot of people, like even in the community, like my music will not, or my preferences, my tastes will not be to everybody's cup of tea. But it's a sort of testament to Jeff that he will, accommodate, my music, and he'll accommodate, a folk or all kinds of stuff that is essentially like, an expression of. I actually really like this term biosphere. It's a really great term.
Yes.
It's one of the best. This is Jason Cohn's.
Yeah.
But it's just a great coinage because
Yeah. We need more dialectic like that, much more, and maybe our poets and our musicians, etc., should work on creating more terms like biospirit and etc. So, but one thing I wanted to chime in with is that I think all of this echoes the point that we've come across in previous episodes, that it's about intent. So for example, your work is extremely pro-white, explicitly pro-white, very powerful, visceral. But then we were discussing earlier about people who are sympathetic to the pro-white musical sphere, artistic sphere. And through that, if they're creating work that has that intent or sympathy, then I think we could embrace that as Imperium Art as well. And there you go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to cover here. I guess.
I just chime in there. Like Nullus, like that essay, it's pretty explicit in some ways as well. There's a lot of it that resonated with me. I'm not so interested in like the metaphysical kind of like philosophy stuff, but the discussion of like aesthetics and violence, and Nullus discusses like futurism, which I don't really agree with it because it's like just violence for its own sake.
Yep.
That kind of thing. But yeah, Nullus. I think Nullus made a little corner in there for me. So it's he touched a lot of bases in that essay. There's room for different things.
Yeah, and I'll add the link below as well, so people listening to the show should go read it and check it out. And everybody, obviously, leave comments below. allow us to continue to grow this research that we're doing on the arts and music in the dissident right, in the white biospirit.
Absolutely. I think these discussions are really brilliant and very worthwhile. And
Awesome.
long may it continue.
Well, Nullus, is there anything else you'd like to cover?
Well, I just wanted to thank Jack for this great interview. I mean, I know we grilled him a lot today, so
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for spending
really
some time
appreciate
with us.
it.
Yeah, and as we say, we're huge fans of yours, and
Absolutely.
we look forward to more amazing
Thanks.
music in the future.
Absolutely. Likewise. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. All right, good night, everybody.
Hey, you think if I land this successfully, Labs will give me a job as a pilot?
I think they would give you a job doing anything if you could pull this off.
Yeah, right. Nah, I'm a white guy.
I'm a no one by name, just a blue-collared guy. A cog in, a clock up, time passing by. Well, I watch the planes coming and head where they're bound. And I look to the sky, but I'm stuck on the ground. Each night I would dream I'd fly like a bird, I'd tumble and soar far from the world, with the wind at my back and my Mondays below. I'd wake in the dive of that last barrel roll. She took off like the devil with the sun in my eye, my foot to the metal and the world passing by. Where the view up here's pretty and all I can hear is sweet nothing whispering into my ear. That day I did wake and flew like a bird. I tumbled and soared far from the herd, with the wind at my back and my troubles below. Boys, I'm headed in steep for 2